Everything will cost more tomorrow than it does today. There's a name for this. It's called inflation. Every generation thinks the next one has it easy. They are wrong. But they are also not imagining it when they say the prices used to be lower. Prices were lower. Everything costs more than it used to. Everything will cost more tomorrow than it does today. And it's not a glitch in the matrix. It is the plan. Inflation is a gradual rise in prices across the whole economy over time. Not just one product getting more expensive, everything getting more expensive. Slowly, steadily, year after year. Like a very boring disaster that never fully arrives but never fully leaves either. And before you think falling prices would be better, we're going to get to that. It's not actually as good as it sounds. It is actually one of the most dangerous things that can happen to an economy. But we will get there. Here is a number that should make you think. In 1964, a McDonald's hamburger cost 15 cents. A movie ticket was under $1. Gas was 27 cents a gallon. Those prices sound impossible now. But here's the thing. Wages were also much lower then too. A minimum wage worker earned about $1.25 an hour. So everything was cheaper. But so was what people were paid. Your grandparents were not living in paradise. They were living in a different price environment with a different salary environment to match. That is the key to understanding inflation. It is not just prices going up. It is the purchasing power of money going down. Inflation means your dollar buys a little less than it did last year. The dollar did not change. What it can get you did. So how do we actually measure this? The government tracks inflation using something called the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. The idea is straightforward. The Bureau of Labor Statistics takes a list of about 80,000 everyday items that a typical American household buys. Groceries, gas, rent, clothing, medical care, and more. Economists call this list a market basket. Every month, data collectors go out and check the prices of everything in that basket. When the basket costs more this month than it did a year ago, the difference? That's the inflation rate. If the CPI says inflation is 4%, that means the average price of everything in the basket is 4% higher than it was 12 months ago. Your dollar buys 4% less than it did last year. That 4% number is what you hear about in the news. It is what the Federal Reserve watches. It is what economists use to figure out whether the economy is running hot, cold, or just right. It is also what causes arguments at family dinners when someone brings up eggs. The CPI is doing a lot of work. So, why does inflation happen? There are two main causes. The first is called demand pool inflation. This happens when too many people have too much money chasing too few goods. Imagine if everyone's paycheck doubled overnight. People would start spending a lot more. A lot more. But the number of available goods does not instantly double. So, prices rise to match the new level of demand. More money chasing the same amount of stuff means each dollar buys less stuff. The money did not become worthless. It just became slightly less meaningful, which is a polite way to describe it. The second is called cost push inflation. This happens when it costs more to make things. If oil prices spike, transportation gets more expensive. If wages rise, labor costs more. Businesses pass those higher costs on to the customers in the form of higher prices. The product did not improve. It did not get bigger or better or more delicious. It just got more expensive to produce. And now, you're paying for it. A small amount of inflation, around 2% per year, is actually considered pretty healthy. It means the economy is active, people are spending, and businesses are growing. The Federal Reserve tries to keep inflation right around that target. Not too hot, not too cold. Like economic porridge, which is a phrase nobody has ever used before, and probably for a good reason. Now, what about the opposite? What if prices fall instead of rise? That is called deflation. And it sounds like great news. Everything's gonna get cheaper. What's not to like? The problem is that when prices are falling, people stop buying things. Why buy a refrigerator today if it will be cheaper next month? So they wait. And when millions of people wait, businesses sell less. They cut production. They lay off workers. Workers have less money. They spend even less. Prices fall further. The spiral tightens. It sounds like a good deal turning into a catastrophe. That is exactly what it is. You have already seen what deflation looks like at its worst. The Great Depression. Prices fell sharply as the economy collapsed, and that falling made recovery even harder. Deflation is one of the most dangerous economic conditions a country can face, which is why that 2% inflation target exists. A small, steady rise in prices keeps the economy moving forward. It turns out a little bit of your money slowly becoming worthless is actually very important for keeping the whole system running. Economics is full of things like this. But when inflation gets out of control, things go wrong fast. The most extreme example in modern history happened in Germany in 1923. The German government, buried in war debt, started printing money to pay bills. Too much money flooded the economy, and prices began rising. People spent their wages as fast as they got them because money was losing value by the hour. At the worst point, a wheelbarrow full of cash could not even buy a loaf of bread. Workers were paid twice a day so they could spend their money before it became worthless by the afternoon. People burned it for heat because it was cheaper than firewood. That is called hyperinflation. And it is what happens when the shared agreement that gives money its value completely breaks down. Fiat money without trust is just paper. Very burnable paper. Those German workers did not make bad decisions. They did not fail to budget correctly. They woke up one day inside a set of rules that had stopped making sense, and they had no map for it. Every historical period has its own rules, and usually you don't notice them until they break. When I draw those moments, I'm not drawing cautionary tales. I'm drawing people who are navigating the same forces you are, just with different clothes and higher stakes. Speaking of things that hold their value, HistoryIllustrated.com. Over there, I got free resources and illustrations. I got a pretty cool coloring book filled with all the US presidents. My prices are not subject to inflation because they're all free. See you next time.